Welcome to the Contractor Sales Academy podcast. I am sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas, Walmart headquarters, right?
Yep.
Walmart headquarters. Here we are with James Miller by my side. What's up, James?
Not much. Having a good time.
Awesome, man. Steve, Derek, you guys are here. We got four of us here today because I'm down here doing some work with James and his company, and figured, well, hey, what the heck? James is a black belt in the Contractor Sales Academy. He's, from what I hear from Dempsey, you've been totally bought into the Shin Fu since day one. And so I thought we'd have a conversation here with him. So say hello, fellas.
What's up, James? I'm really interested to hear about your very first foray with the Shin Fu and your skepticism.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear that story right on this podcast.
because Greg says that you were not bought in at all. So I think
No.
something here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when I first joined the bridge, I was looking for a sales process, and to be frank, I didn't know what it was going to end up being. Right. But I remember Greg was the one I connected with the most, because he's a GC, I'm a GC. And I remember reaching out to him, and I just said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. And of course he, said, yeah, no problem. And we chatted once or twice, and I basically just called him and I said, Greg, I need a mentor. I need somebody to help me out here, and he just kept saying, dude, you got to role play. And I hung up, and frankly, if I remember correctly, I was pretty irritated. Like, dude, I wanted you to be a mentor, and you're just telling me role play, and that's just, role plays are stupid. I remember thinking that. In fact, I've said it on some of my videos, right, that role plays are stupid. And if they're role plays for the sake of role plays, they are stupid, as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully that's not too far from the company line here. But once, and I kind of sat on my laurels. I was in the bridge for, 7-8 months before my first role play. And then, and I actually, for Nash Vegas in 2019, when I opted to go there, on my way driving to Nashville, was my first ever role play on December 9th. And I did my green belt that week while we were in Nashville and on the way back. And then I took a couple weeks off. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this, like most people do, right? And took a few weeks off, and then kind of slowly got back in. And then, what really, Steve, you said you'd love to hear the story. What really kind of got me to where I was realizing the power of the role plays and the power of like being involved. I started to notice that the weeks that I role played, my interactions with clients, with actual real life clients, were better. And so I got to the point where I just said, all right, James, 5 a week minimum, you've got to role play. And so I just set a target for myself of 5. Most weeks I ended up going between 8 and 10. And I just started doing it. And somewhere around 150, 170 is when I started to see like real world results in my business, where things started to sell, things started to click. And at that point, I mean, it was no longer, gee, I wonder if this works.
It's funny, James. Every black belt, and a black belt, so just so the folks listening understand, that's when you get 200 role plays under your belt, literally. They say the same thing, that this light bulb of clarity goes off when you reach the hundreds, not 50 role plays, not 70. It's like 100 or 150 or 180. It's just like what you just said, somewhere around 150, 170. It all of a sudden clicked. And that's amazing because you're all pretty consistent with that number. What do you think that's about?
For me, I can't speak for the other guys, but for me, it was about confidence, I guess. I got to the point where and no longer was like, well, I wonder if I should do this or should do this or should do this or what should I stay here. I had practiced enough that it, you know, became almost second nature. And I want to say, Derek, it's you that has the whole, can I ask you a bold question or can I say something bold? Maybe it's the first place I heard it, but I remember, you know, the first job I sold, like got the commitment over the phone, was a $100,000 project. And I still remember hanging up from that and going, holy crap, you know? But I literally, you know, we were having the conversation. It was a great conversation. It was textbook, like their responses were textbook. And I remember saying, you know, can I ask you a really bold question? And they said, yeah. And I said, if I come out there and, you know, all this stuff we talked about is the same, am I your contractor? And then I just shut up. And, you know, it was a husband and wife on the phone. And the wife's like, yeah, I think so. I think so. And, you know, what do you think, Doug? And he's like, yeah. We met a week later, you know, nailed down the details, signed the contract. My team is currently working on it, about halfway through the project. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Steve, but I think for me it was self-confidence. And then, you know, you start chalking the wins and the wins get easier.
It's what goes back to that. You will always rise to your highest level of training. So once you get 150, 170 role plays in, your default system has changed. You start saying the things that you practice. I remember Chris Ostrander, when, you know, Steve and we were all starting to throw on that $500 consultation fee. And Chris posted and said, you know, I came to the consulting fee, and before I could even stop myself, $500 shot out of my mouth. And they said, okay. And that's where this stuff is not theory. This stuff is been put together by Steve and Tom and you guys, contractors, been contractors, contracting business for contractors. So all the language and role playing that we're doing is contractor centric, obviously. So when we're having these conversations with clients or potential clients, we're saying the right things. And we've done it so many times, you are confident. It just seems so normal. And what I think a lot of people are missing, like you making the statement of, is it okay if I make a bold statement or if I say something bold? That's easy in theory. But to really do that and have the balls to say that comes from practice. Because not too long ago, the $200,000 job I sold, I literally said, dude, just give me your no bullshit price. And I remember going. Said that?
Shit, did I say that? Yeah.
Looking behind.
Did I say that out loud?
But that's a testament, James. You weren't super stoked about this. You actually thought it was silly, but you engaged in it, and then here you are. It's the black belt. You have 200 plus points. Are you at 300 yet?
I am, if you count, you know, white belt points and everything. Yeah, I'm a little bit over.
So you're right there. So things are even transitioning again. And something I think a lot of people don't realize too, and I noticed this, and I know I'm the kooky one. The more role plays I did, somehow the phone rang more.
I've seen that.
Just something was happening where actually clients were calling me. And I don't know, I'm just putting it out in the universe, and the universe is going, hey, you know, if he's practicing all this shit, let's give him some, you know, some real at bats here. Every time I go on a role play binge, and one of my secrets is when the phone stops ringing, I go on a role play binge, and then my phone starts ringing again. So, for what it's worth. But I'm okay.
So I'm sitting here in his office, and I showed you guys earlier today, I showed them what's on your walls in here. And I'm sitting here going, there is evidence all over this place that this is somebody who's putting the work in. You know, and I think that's something, you know, here you're saying the light bulb went off at around 150 for you or whatever it was, role plays. Guys, how many people come and go from the bridge and we don't even know their names? They were in for 6 months, 3 months, 8 months, a year, and never did one role play, and they go, this shit doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like you actually, if you want to learn how to play guitar, you got to pick up guitar and practice, right? So I'm looking here and he's like, track effective sales rate. I look over here, It's written on the board. Tell me what you want me to know. I look over here. This is the good one. Don't be the expert. The dumber I am, the more money I make. Tim Catroni. All right. And there's the 6 questions you should ask. And here's the card. And there's, the truth. And I mean, everywhere in this room, this is evidence of somebody who takes it seriously. And I'm bringing this up because, Steve, you've said forever, and you've taken your camera before on our webinar calls and training calls that we do, and you've shown people your command central. And yeah, he's doing it right now. There it is. Okay.
I got the same questions you got, man.
Yep. And
all of it.
And what's cool, I think it was this morning at some point you said to me, you just said, I just woke up one day and I'm like, I'm going to do this. 29 years in business or whatever it was. I'm not playing games anymore. And so from what I can tell, I walk in here and I go, oh, he knows Steve. do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's evidence of the mentor in the room here, which is pretty cool. And a lot of people are like, what's the hack? What's the secret sauce? Imitate somebody who's where you want to be and do it. And you've done it to the point of hanging the same shit on the wall in the same vantage point. And I'm curious, is this just eye candy for the wall, or do you actually use the shit on the wall?
No, I use it. And in fact, the thing you didn't mention that I want to is the 3 goals that I set in Nashville when we had Andy Bailey are sitting right there: plan, act, connect. So that I'm looking at my daily goal, at my goals, that I setting next to you, Steve, right? When we did that, I'm sitting there looking at that. There's a comment from you up there when you said, you, my friend, are about to conquer the world. I can see it. That was a Facebook comment on one of my posts, and it hit me. And so I printed it out. Brad Hebner, the same thing. And the one below it is one that Micah quoted. So basically it's stuff that inspires me. Yes, I look at this every single time I'm making a phone call. I'm looking at the 6 questions. Even though I already know them, I'm still looking at them. I'm still going, okay, did I hit every of the 5 steps? I have the BS meter with the thing. I do have a consultation fee to come out because I was struggling with that one for a while. This week, like you said, Derek, rise to the level you were training. I just decided in the middle of a phone call, as I was saying it, my consultation fee is no longer $300. It's now $500. 3 of them, and in fact, I even posted in the bridge today, something about like, just trust the process. Trust the process.
So I got a deeper question, James.
Okay.
You know how people judge you, and I think you actually know how I personally judge you. Like, I know you pretty well because we sat in a workshop all day together, and then we actually texted every day for a month we did it for? Was that about right? About, did we achieve our personal goals that day?
Right.
And I know I have a litmus test for when someone comes in a group, and do they really get it or don't they really get it? And I'm wondering if you can, and this is not a trick question, but what is my ultimate end all be all litmus test to, is James really getting this shit or not getting this shit?
Am I making money?
100%. I'm so proud you just said that. Because, no, really. I mean, I don't even know if Tom and, I mean, they probably knew this, but I don't want someone coming in and being a shiny ornament and a trophy, but be all hat and no cattle, as they say in Texas, right? So you entered this year in, financial, you had big debt and stuff, and I know you're lopping that off at a massive clip. And I know from following you that you actually turned it into making money. So I just want you to speak to that part of it, because that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's the only reason, if money was not in this world, A, we wouldn't have a CSA, and B, no one would be listening to us right now, is the truth of the matter.
Right.
Just speak to that about kind of where you were financially. You don't need to be specific any more than you want to be. And how has that world of yours changed in the, how long you been with us now? A year?
It's been about 15 months, but active about 7 months.
Okay. And so tell us about that. The real life money, the no bullshit money world you live in today
All right.
versus then.
Be careful what you ask for, Steve. Um, so first week of January of 2020, I literally was 2 days away from having to go home and tell my wife there was a good chance we were going to lose our home. I literally was looking at, I was going to have to shut the doors, owing people money, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. It was a freaking nightmare. It was a nightmare of my own making, Steve, but it was a nightmare. Fast forward to now, I just, that rubber hits the road. I said, okay, I'm done. This is no longer a game. I'm going to run it as a business or I'm not going to do it. Some of that was conversations with you, listening to Tom, listening to Derek, even Tim and Greg, like you guys have all inspired me. And I basically just decided that, and I'm a very independent minded guy, but I decided that I needed to trust the process and just do it. Just emulate people who had success. And so I've taken that, I've taken all of the debt that I had, I've restructured it into longer term, low interest stuff. I've gotten almost all of my vendors caught back up. My accounts are back open. I've paid myself this year for the first time ever consistently, and paid myself pretty well. I set my sales goal this year at $800,000 at 40% gross profit. And the reason I picked 40 is because I had trash around 50. And I thought 40 is doable. I don't think I can do 50. And at 40% of $800,000, that's 300 grand. And that's about how much I was in the hole. And I thought if I can just get back to zero this year, I'm good. Fast forward to right now, I hit that $800,000 target by May 31st. Since that time, I've bumped my margins. Most of my projects right now are selling between 60 and 70% gross profit. I'm on target to do 1.25 this year, and I'll land somewhere around 50% gross by the time the whole year comes together. There's money in the bank. I've paid myself. I've paid my team. I've paid off hard money over 80. Now I'm at 92,000-ish that I've paid off in debt, not counting what I've restructured. Steve, it's an absolute life changer. I'm just so far removed from what I was 7 months ago. It's hard to even contemplate. Does that answer your question?
No, I do, because it leads to the biggest question that the three of us are going to ask you today. When people join our group, we are always interested in what's going on in their head, like in terms of their destination, their end destination. Like in your head, James, when you joined this group, where did you hope to end up?
That's a fantastic question, Steve. When I first joined the CSA, it was a fight night that for Tom that I was on, that he said, and you guys have all heard him say it 100 times, when are you going to quit stealing from your family? I'm paraphrasing, but I'm sitting in my office watching that fight night, and I'm literally bawling my eyes out, and then jumped in the CSA thinking, man, I've got to update my sales processes. I had sales training, but it was 25 years ago. And just realizing that some of the stuff, like going out on site, and it just wasn't working, right? It just wasn't working like it used to. And so when I jumped in the CSA, to be honest, Steve, I had no inclination that I could get myself completely free. I literally was just thinking, if I can sell better, I can sell more, have higher top line revenue, and eventually I'll make some money. I didn't have any inkling that the level of mindset shift that would take place in this group. And I think in some ways that's the bigger value that comes out of this group, especially now that we've hit the 2.0.
When you say that, we don't know what we don't know. And
Yep.
here, and you dig in, you start doing this stuff. and shit happens to you, you're like, wow, like I never even thought that was going to happen. Like, and it's just business as usual. I mean, those are the nuggets, those are the diamonds, and that's the implementation process. When you start implementing those things, and it's just like, wow, this shit really works. Like what he said to do, and I just did it, and they reacted that way. Yeah.
I've had that 6-8 times easy. Not more.
There's a lot of things that that are going to happen to each individual in the group that they don't have a clue because of limiting beliefs. You know, they don't really know their destination, but they like, okay, I want to start on the course, and let's see where we end up. And most of the time, it's so surreal and better than you ever thought it could be.
100%.
So, James, I'd like to put this in the real terms. How much money this year or in the last 12 months, you use any 12-month time frame you want, because this shit is just not accidental. You have put a lot of time, energy, and money into improving your world and everybody around you. And we've all seen it. And I am so proud to sit here today to just watch you. But I want people to understand. Just tell us about your time commitment. How many hours a week do you spend literally trying to get better? How much money have you spent? Because I know you belong to groups. You're flying Tom down there to come make you. I mean, this is a massive commitment on your part, and I want these people that are listening to us to know this is not a walk in the park.
No, it's not.
Situation.
Time commitment, Steve, I would say on average between role plays, webinars, and then I actually I mentioned this to Lindsay the other day, it'd be cool to have a column in the tracker for non-role play conversations, right? Because I have a lot of those, 3 or 4 of those a week sometimes too, where I'm interacting with bridge members, but it's not necessarily role play. Don't necessarily have to do that, but I'm probably at, between 12 and 18 hours consistently that I'm putting into the bridge and the groups and personal training. From a money standpoint, I actually did this after I hired Tom, just because I was curious where I was landing. And I've dropped between now and January, by the end of the year, I have dropped $28,000. And before the year is out, I'll have dropped 40, because there's actually a mindset coach that I'm getting ready to sign on, because I'm just ready to get out of my own way.
So that's $40,000 annual money you're going to spend this year, plus roughly 15 to 18 hours per week in your personal time.
Yep.
And I almost want to know, had you not done this, what would it have cost you?
There's not a number that big. It might have cost me my marriage, Steve. It sure as hell would have cost me everything else I'd tried to build all these years.
I would be remiss if I also didn't say this, because the ones like James that propel themselves the most are just so happen to be the biggest givers. You give, I know, you give of yourself, you give of your time, you give of your opinions, you give as much as you get, to tell you the truth. And I think what you're finding out, that as you give more, you actually receive a hell of a lot more than you ever give away, which is the true secret sauce to our groups.
Truth. So as we begin to wrap this up, I'm going to say something. I'll give you a minute to think about anything that you might want to share with people who are listening here. That maybe we didn't cover that you think would be important to help somebody. But guys, when I walked in this morning, and he spent a half an hour shooting the shit, giving me a tour, this and that. We're talking about some of the results that he's had. You were filling me in on that. And then James said to me, he goes, Tom, I feel like I'm kind of that results not typical, disclaimer. at the bottom of the infomercial or whatever it was, that results not typical. And I've actually been camping on that in my mind for a while. Derek, your results not typical. And there's a number of other people that we could go not typical. But then I go, well, the reason your results aren't typical is because the type of effort that you put in is not typical. This is truly one of those things where you are going to get 10, 20, 100-fold over the course of your career. I mean, for God's sake, you just talked about how it might have saved your marriage. So that's like, there's no number on that one, right? So it's like, and Steve and I, when we started this, we had no idea we'd be helping marriages. I'll tell you that. And then this isn't the first time we've heard this. Okay. So, or relationships and stuff. That wasn't the intent, but it's crazy. But I just want to give you props because your effort is not typical. The way that you take this serious, when I walked in the building and the things that are hanging on the wall, and a lot of people can hang shit on the wall, but you also back it up because you got over 300 points and crazy number of role plays. I mean, you guys see it. Somebody posts a question in the group, and he's usually one of the first people that responds or gives his input or support. Honestly, my first thought sometimes is, you. Okay. Sometimes when I see things, and James is always like, well, tell me more about that and what's really going on. And he's digging, he's got some empathy and this and that, so dude, like, Steve, you were one of the biggest givers. Like physically, you're a huge man. I mean, guys, look at our hands here real quick. I'm like sitting, our arms are on the table, and I'm looking at my hand, I'm looking at his hands, I'm like, I feel like a little kid. But anyway, I just want to give you props that your effort's not typical. So if you had the typical effort, you wouldn't have the results not typical, if that means anything. So what's that?
Don't be typical.
Don't be typical. There you go. So you got a minute or so left here. And you got, a bunch of contractors in their trucks, in their earbuds on a job site, whatever they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, but they're listening to this. You got the stage, man.
Well, and you've heard this, I know, but so much more of this than we realize is about mindset. It's about feeding our minds the right things. And what I've found in the CSA is the right things that I can feed my mind with interactions in a community. I actually had, I spent about an hour on the phone with a contractor fight member the other day, talking about the CSA because he was wondering about, should I join or should I put my people in or whatever. And I just told him, number one, he had to follow it. But the thing I talked about was the community that's found in this group that I've looked my whole life for a community like this, and here it is, and I have it. And I told him, I was like, I'll never leave because I can't find this anywhere else. And the other thing I guess I'm thinking, it's you mentioned it this morning, you kind of called my attention to it this morning, written on a window over I've got big windows in my offices. My office manager's office, it's the first thing you see when walk in the door. And I may not get it exactly right here, but basically what it says is the work that we do, especially in times of crisis, can strengthen marriages, help families, and bring peace. And I guess the part about that ties into what I'm saying about mindset is this, when you, like my team sees that, we talk about that, the fact that we're not just hammering nails, we're not just building additions on people's homes, we're doing things to make their home life better, to bring them peace. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking of the paint happy guy, right? Where there's just so much more to it. And if you want to get bogged down in this is what I do day to day, then you can do that. And you can potentially create a living for yourself. But if you want to create a life, if you want to create something that you really want to have, then you've got to fix the mindset. You've got to follow people who are more successful than you and get out of your own freaking way. Just follow the process, trust it, and do it. Take the people that say this will work and believe them, and then do it.
Well, that's good stuff, man. Steve, Derek, anything else?
Yeah, just one more little point. I know you've lost a bunch of weight. I can see it in your face. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
somehow I got a funny feeling that kind of ties into all of this.
It does.
How much weight have you lost?
65 pounds since December.
65 pounds since December.
Technically, it's February when I signed up with the nutritional fitness coach.
Well, good for you, man. I'm really proud of you, James. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your soul.
I'm proud to be part of it. I really truly mean that, Steve. You know, I've had lots of interactions aside from the CSA or from the bridge, at least specifically. I think you know where my heart's at, but you know, you guys have changed my life in a way and that I would have never foreseen. And I'm just eager to help other people see it that are willing to dive in and do what I did.
Awesome.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, Derek.
Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging with us here today. James, I appreciate you hanging out and sharing your story. Guys, if you want to learn more about the Contractor Sales Academy, head to contractorsalesacademy.com. Check out what we have going. Here's a cool thing. You brought up the community, and I want to shed attention to this, that, you know, James is one of our black belts, which means he's a mentor in the group. And we have a number of them, and that number grows every month. And guys, when you come into a community like this, you don't just get these training calls and role plays and, you know, scripts and stuff like that. You actually get to rub elbows with guys like James, which I think is pretty damn cool, that have the heart to lift others up, who know what it's like to almost lose a house and have things going on at home and having dire financial situations, but have dug themselves out of that. So I'm super proud of just, you know, what you guys have done with this as a group of black belts as well, because I know you guys are just trying to elevate other people around you. So anyway, with that, head to iTunes, wherever you listen to this, give us a review if you would, and more importantly, share this podcast with another contractor, because I guarantee you all know somebody who could use it. We'll see you guys next time.